Hi, welcome to the show. I'm Ivory. And this is
Right.
Roz.
Right.
We'll do it tandem. This is Roz. Give her the big entrance. Today's topic is psychic dreams. Before we jump into that, hello to our listeners in Frankfurt am Main, Germany. Thank you so much for tuning in week after week. It's exciting to know you're here with us supporting the show. We appreciate it. Psychic dreams. Roz and I have had so many conversations off air about psychic dreams. I
Whoa.
have a lot of them.
It's so interesting. I did not remember my dreams really for a very long number of years. But in the last maybe 5 years, I've started to keep that information stored. So it's very interesting because I do so much when I'm visioning, but in the dream state, you're so free. You're so able to just
Yeah.
travel, explore, and adventure.
Your subconscious mind is wide open. It's very receptive. And
It is.
unlike you, like even as a really small child, I know that I remembered my dreams and I know they were super vivid because I remember being 5 years old and my sister and I's bedrooms were upstairs and it was Christmas. And I had a dream that I woke up and at the foot of my bed on the floor was a mountain of wrapped gifts. And it was so beautiful. And I woke up and started crying because all the gifts were gone. And my mom's like, "What's wrong? What happened to all my presents?" She's like, "They're downstairs under the tree." "No, the ones that were on the floor in my room." She's like, "There were no presents in your room." So I know at that age, I remember that interaction. Um, it hasn't stopped. I still have very vivid dreams where it's in color. I feel wind on my face. I smell things. I can touch things and feel it. And I generally remember my dreams
Mhm.
quite detailed. But if I think I might not remember, I keep a little journal by my bed, a small one, and a pen and a little flashlight. And I get up and in the middle of the night and write the date, the time, kind of the highlights of what is. I can always write more in the morning, but if it's something I think is a psychic dream, I especially want to write it down if they feel important.
I think that's a good plan, you know, where you get that information and you're able to put it in a format that is permanently stored. And you can always refer back to it because find that a lot of things when I'm kind of going over my dreams, I've forgotten little details that were occurring, so it's pretty helpful to use
And
that.
as you know, Roz, I have quite a lot of premonition dreams.
Yeah.
And I wish mine, I was telling somebody, I was at my high school reunion over the weekend, and this subject came up with somebody who knows what I do. And I'm like, I wish my premonition dreams were lovely things like buy a lottery ticket and you're going to win. No, it's usually there's fires somewhere or floods or landslides, and then it happens. And sometimes I was thinking of a dream I had last year, and I knew it was a psychic dream. And let me just preface this here. All my dreams are vivid, but a psychic dream seems extra vivid. And there's something about it. Sometimes there's a very telltale sign, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but they usually just feel important to me. And I can't really quite explain that. Maybe that's different for every person. But I had this dream that I was in a bus with a bunch of other people, and we're on like a really dirt road with like a high wall on one side and a very steep cliff on the left. And all of a sudden, the road was very curvy and it was going to curve around to the right. And across this canyon, I saw a landslide, and the bus driver kept driving. And I remember everyone's freaking out, and I'm putting my hand on people's hands and just trying to calm them. But I knew we were going to die. And I knew our bus was we started headed around the corner, and the wall to the right starts to slide down, and then I wake up. Fabulous. So I knew it was a psychic dream, and I looked online and I finally found something it was a picture of the exact scene that I saw from where we were positioned in the bus, just getting ready to head to the right, except you could see that the landslide had come down, and they talked about a bus being swept down with a landslide and everybody died. And I'm like, oh, fantastic. I don't like having these psychic dreams that are premonition if I can't do something about it. If I can't prevent it or help someone, it's just terrifying.
Well, I feel like when those kind of dreams occur, you are literally the soul that is there, present, comforting.
That's
Like,
what I think too.
you're there for a purpose. You're there to help them have this horrendous experience, but you're not physically
I
there.
wasn't terrified, but I did wonder why the bus driver kept driving. Even in that moment, I'm like, why don't you stop? You can see that there's disaster ahead. But there's been other things too, like I will dream I'm on an airplane and something happens and the airplane's going to crash. Same thing. I'm holding people's hands and I'm just sending calm energy into them. And I feel like I'm okay if I die. And then there's a plane crash. And I do wonder about that, Roz, because why would I be given a dream just to see some horrible things going to happen? But always I'm comforting people in the moment, trying to help them not be so terrified facing death.
Because I think our soul side, that has a purpose, that has a job. I always call it my job from God, but we don't necessarily do all of those jobs in our physical body.
Good point. Good point. We are spiritual beings, and I try to just roll with it because I can't stop it. I remember telling you when it was years ago, maybe 7 years ago, I started dreaming. And the most vivid one about fire was that the whole state of California was on fire, which was weird at the time that they weren't having fires. The whole state was on fire. And all of us in Arizona were standing at the border of California and Arizona like superheroes, like ready to go. And we all had buckets of water, which is pretty hilarious when you think about it, because the fire's coming our way. Like we don't have fires in Arizona. And we were it was coming closer and closer. And I remember waking up going, that's so weird. California, they don't really have a lot of fires. And now all of a sudden they have a lot of fires. And so sometimes it's like that where it's not literally coming true. The whole state of Arizona was not standing on the border with buckets of water. I can assure you, I would remember that. There would have been an announcement of some kind. But the state of California did start having so many fires, and that's kind of how it goes sometimes. So sometimes it's literal, and sometimes it's warning of something that's going to happen, like the flooding. Roz, you were laughing at me a little bit, but I think you were one of the people who like respected why I was not willing to buy a house that might be in a flood zone when I was looking for a place to move to. I was having all those dreams of floods, and I didn't know if it was here or where in the world it was. Just floods.
Well, I've actually lived two places where I was flooded out practically. I mean, the water literally came in the door and left out the other door.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's so funny because when I'm searching for a place to live, that's one of the first things I want to know. Is what are the flood zones there? What are the conditions? Am I on high ground?
Yeah, and sometimes it looks like you'd be okay, but there's a development I'm not going to name, but it's in the Sedona area, and it's right on Oak Creek. And you know that I was really wanting to buy a house in there, and it was up really high. Now, the houses that were down by the river, most of them were up on high. The ones that were newer were up on high poles, and that was the rule. You had to be at least 12 feet. That was really an eye-opener, but some of the older houses right on the river were not. They may be up 4 feet on built up, but we know how Oak Creek gets.
Yeah.
This year it was a doozy, wasn't it?
I've seen some floods there that were mind-boggling, really.
Yeah. So it kept me from looking at a house that was really cool. It was right on the river. It was in the shade. It was the perfect size. It would have been really super nice. But I couldn't get all those dreams of floods out of my head. And
Smart.
But it's not always about disasters, you know. Do you think you get psychic dreams, Roz?
I get dreams, usually I'm traveling and I'm experiencing things, not as intense a nature as yours though, where you're seeing disasters, you're saying. I, generally speaking, don't have those kind of dreams. When I'm having psychic dreams, I'm usually not on the planet,
I
number
was gonna
one.
say, I wondered if yours might be more like mystic experiences where you see
Yeah.
visions.
Where I always seem to be traveling off through the cosmos. So many of them I've been moving like the speed of light. I must be, and the stars are going by like streaks of light, and it's pretty wild.
I've seen those. I don't dream those, but I see those like in mystic visions. That's going like you're in a tunnel and there's just, it's kind of like a scene from Star Trek, really. Um, the other kind of dream can be not what I was saying. It doesn't have to be like a natural disaster. I have had dreams, very vivid, detailed dreams of how people I know die. And they're all still living. So that remains to be seen what happens with that. And sometimes I see newspapers, articles about things that say like a certain star died, or sometimes there was one about a Kennedy, and I don't think that Kennedy's even born yet, or if they are, they're an infant, they're not in the news yet. But there was a big headline, I wrote it in my dream journal, about a Kennedy that did something, which I'm not going to talk about. But it was a very vivid dream, and the newspaper spun up and just stayed there for quite a long time so I could get a good read of it. So I woke up and wrote that down, but I did research and couldn't find anybody with that first name in the Kennedy, and it is part of the Kennedy family, but that remains to be seen. I hope that doesn't come true. But
You know,
usually, like the way I know it's a psychic dream, and I know I told you about this, Roz, it's very weird. Like a piece of paper will either spin into the center of the screen or it'll come up and then hover. And the first one I saw like that had the word M-E-R, mare. And I had no idea what that was. And like later I found out that was like a civilization. And it's some people knew about that and they're like, oh my gosh, that's da 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 da. Like I had no idea. But after that, I started seeing that a lot, where a piece of paper would come up with a person's name or a date, or it could be a place, but it's hovers long enough that I go, okay, in my dream, I'm thinking this is a psychic dream. So I need to wake myself up. I need to write down what they're showing me, because they're hovering it there. And that's how I saw the newspaper too, except it
that's
was an
really
actual
interesting.
newspaper cover.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That I think your level of clarity on those things, you know.
I figure it's important that somebody's trying to show me something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it has been helpful to me personally, like to be aware of something or to expect something, not necessarily a bad thing, but just to expect an opportunity or a person by that name to come into my life. I actually did have a dream twice about my like a very special romantic partner for me. And yes, they were a handsome man, but I felt like a very strong soul connection. And I wrote down every detail about them in case I meet that person, so I'll remember what they
That's
look like.
interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Your connections are being brought forth.
Yeah. I mean, can you remember any visions that ended up being prophetic?
What, it's interesting. Actually, I have encountered a couple of people in my life that I immediately recognized from a past life. I know you've experienced that too. And that, I think, happens in a dream state, but I don't think that I necessarily recall the situation. And I remember when Ed and I first met, that was really interesting because I saw previous lives with him so clearly, like things that had occurred. And that was very fascinating to me. I was thinking, whoa, now this is somebody that I really had, lengthy experience with. So,
And
and
they're
we're
bound to feel
very
super,
telepathic too. So,
somebody like that's bound to feel super comfortable to you when you meet
yeah,
them.
it was very interesting.
It's very, it's just so weird to me. Like sometimes I feel like psychic dreams are, for me, are rarely symbolic. They're almost always a very representative, like I'm shown what to expect or what's going to happen or what's going to happen to somebody else. Um, but I can't make it happen. Somebody asked me that and I'm answering that now. No, I can't say tonight I'm going to dream what numbers to win in the lottery. No, darn it, it doesn't work. Somebody just asked me that recently. Like, no, darn it. If it did, you would know about it.
I have had clients though that have won large jackpots that saw the numbers first in their head. So
I
I
have
think
friends who I
it
think that
happened.
their main psychic ability is picking slot machines at a casino because they regularly win large amounts. Like that's
Oh,
their main psychic skill. It is not mine, more's
my
the
mother,
pity.
my
Yep.
mother was amazing. And at the end of her life, she was in a wheelchair and she had macular degeneration. So she was legally blind. You could take her into a casino and just take her down an aisle and she'd go, I want to play that. And win every time, win.
That's what my friends do. I go with them sometimes and they'll just like sit at a machine, like a random machine, and ding, 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 ding. Like, no, it doesn't work like that for me. So if it works that way for you, well, you are one of the lucky few. Most people, it's just for helping other people and being aware of things in your own life. But I have had dreams about other people's loved ones, people I didn't even know well, like that their husband was going to die. And
Yeah.
I heard their husband was, I didn't know what their husband's name was at the time. And so when I'm not going to say the name because people will know who I'm talking about, but they also is the name of a famous musician. So I thought that's who they were talking about. Then I found out, no, it was actually their husband. I have had dreams about other people divorcing that I barely know, you know, all kinds of things in my dreams. It's like, no wonder I don't feel very rested even after a good night's sleep most of the time.
Think about that.
I've always called my dreams my other life because they're that vivid. And sometimes I'll dream things and think that I did it in a waking state, like it really happened in a waking state, because it feels the same to me. And I've met other people. I know there's people listening right now who are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And it can be hard to discern between the two sometimes. That's not good. It makes it sound like I'm psychotic. I'm absolutely not. Um, I'm
I
definitely
think
not.
I think a lot of your you have such an imaginative, creative side that's why you have this amazing dream life that's going on. Because, I'm not really very imaginative, and I don't think of myself as really being a highly creative person. So I just don't process into the kind of dream state. My dreams are always kind of just from out of the blue. And the one thing that I do think is that we all can experience this deja vu thing. And I am convinced that when I have deja vu, and I think this is true with most other people, I have actually gone forward in time and I have experienced whatever this that I'm re-experiencing now.
Are you
Because,
having it more often lately?
hmm?
Are you having deja vu more often as
Oh,
time goes
yes.
by? Me too. We should do
Yeah.
a show about that. I don't think we ever have. I'm going to write it down because if I don't,
It's an interesting aspect of our intuitive side because we're not stuck in this time. We're not stuck in this body. we
one
have
knows.
the ability to go into these other dimensional fields, and time is kind of a man-created
It
situation.
is man created. That's why they don't have it on the other side. And we are
So,
so out of time. We're going to have to stop here, but we will continue this on our Patreon page. I'm actually going to be presenting like how to know you're having a psychic dream, signs that it's a psychic dream. Some might be what we talked about already, and some will be new to you. And right now, we're giving away free 1 week subscriptions to our Patreon page. So you can go in for free and enjoy these things that are exclusive material there. And that's where we do our group teaching. So you can check it out. Next Friday, our topic is spiritual telepathy. It's the one type of telepathy we didn't have enough time to dive into last time we talked about telepathy. So we'll be talking about that, which is considered a really special, like the heightened, highest type of telepathy. So that'll be interesting. I think a lot of you will recognize some aspects of that in your own life. And in the meantime, we hope that you have an enlightening week.